This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Friday, March the 15th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's producing this Come On With It edition. So if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So here we go, steaming into the St. Patrick's Day weekend. You know, people talk about the concept of cultural appropriation. No one seems to mind when everyone is all of a sudden kissing me because I'm Irish here on this particular weekend, but if you're going to be one of the revelers out and about, enjoy in a safe fashion, and happy St. Patrick's Day to you. And of course, the 15th of March, beware the Ides of March. In Rome, the March the 15th was, a bunch of religious observations. It was also the deadline to settle debts. And then, of course, infamously, the assassination of Julius Caesar. So beware the Ides of March. All right, last night, Dawson Mercer scored. He's 17th on the season. Good for him. And here's a couple of interesting notes. So, Newhook did not score, but the Montreal Canadiens had their own team skills challenge, much like what you see at the All-Star game, and Newhook was the fastest skater. So I think he was the last skater to go, but they probably figured he was the fastest player on the team. The time to beat was 14:01 seconds. Newhook takes off. He skates the circuit in 13.372 seconds, so 8/10 quicker than the person that he had to beat. For context, Connor McDavid, widely recognized as the fastest player in the world. At the most recent All-Star game, McDavid won the fastest skater with a time of 13.4. So not to say that Newhook is necessarily faster than McDavid, because of course you have to have a puck on your stick for the real true measure of speed. But Newhook, 13.372, unbelievable. The record in the NHL for the fastest lap is 13.1, held by Detroit Red Wings' Dylan Larkin. Incredible stuff. Oh, speaking of Newhook, Alex and Abby Newhook's parents, Sean and Paula Mercer, today is their anniversary. Happy anniversary to them. All right, let's keep going here. So on this date, 52 years ago, 1972, The Godfather premiered in the United States. Of course, based on a novel of the same name by American Mario Puzo. Get a load of this. Paramount acquired the rights for $80,000, set a budget of $2.5 million, and at the time it was the highest grossing film ever made, earned about $287 million at the box office. So buy the rights for $80, set a budget of $2.5, $287 at the box office. Amazing stuff. Sticking with the big screen for a second. It was on this date in 1964 that Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton were married. It was her fifth husband. Elizabeth Taylor went on to have 8 husbands and married, of course, Richard Burton twice, 64 to 74, then 75 to 76. Of course, both unions ended in divorce, but married Burton, her true love, first time, 1964. All right, and what's this scribble I got here? Oh, Rolls-Royce. So it was on this date 118 years ago that Henry Royce and Charles Rolls put their brains and their surnames together to form the most iconic luxury car maker in history. Rolls-Royce released the 4050 in 1908, of course, known as the Silver Ghost. It was a huge hit. When the war rolled around, of course, they turned their attention to building aircraft engines. They eventually splintered out one, aircraft engine and automotive, but Rolls-Royce, they joined forces and released the Silver Ghost in 1908. And speaking of speed, the whole concept of speed cameras, remarkably, I'm seemingly in the distinct minority with thinking they're a great idea. Now, we saw the Apollo program last year in Mount Pearland and Paradise. There is thoughts that it will be expanded province-wide and provincially managed roads starting this year. So the notables: Veterans Memorial Highway, some of the divided highway between Conception Bay North and Trans-Canada, and parts of the Outer Ring Road, I would suggest. And just for the whole concept of how much it's going to cost to install, and the compilation of the data and the distribution of tickets, over the course of 3 months in just Mount Pearl and Paradise, 94,000 vehicles were recorded going at least 11 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. 25% of those were recorded speeding by over 20 kilometers per hour. So bring on the speed cameras, if you ask me. Okay. So plenty of conversation. Mr. Poilievre was touring the province. I believe he was in Corner Brook last night. And of course, the primary message is axe the tax. Carbon tax. There's lots of concern floating around the entire country about the pending increase coming on the 1st of April. Fair enough. And the price of a litre of fuel moved from 14 cents to 17 cents per litre, not insignificant. So if you want to take it on, we can do it. What we don't hear from any of our members of Parliament is something else that's going to happen on the 1st of April. I've mentioned it a few times, but I think it's worth putting it out there again. There's a pay raise coming for our parliamentarians on the 1st of April. No one in the opposition, no one on the government side is talking about that. When you look at the struggles Canadians are facing, this seems to be an ill-timed pay raise. Generally speaking, the feds, what are we, in excess of $1 trillion in debt? They link it to some of the raises that were achieved inside of unions and corporations with 500 people or more. Average rate of pay increase in the country last year was 4.2%, we're told. If you use that data, there will be a raise of $8,100 for the backbench members, $11,900 for ministers, $16,200 for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So currently, a backbench salary is $194,600. A minister, $287,400. The Prime Minister, over $389,000. If they get the 4.2% raise, that will bring their average pay to backbenchers $202,700, ministers $299,000 plus, and the Prime Minister $405,400. Remarkably, they all talk about the struggles Canadians are facing. And you think it would be ample opportunity for whether it be the optics or a political victory for someone, anybody, I don't care what party they represent, to say this is not the time to see us get a pay raise. Because it is not the time for them to get a pay raise. It has happened before. After the 08-09 recession, the members of Parliament did not receive a pay raise from 2010 to 2013. So while we look at the issues that we are discussing, the issues affecting my pocketbook, we absolutely could and should be talking about it, but it's not a coincidence that no members of Parliament who are not struggling add to their salaries a bunch of per diems and cost coverage measures that are in place, and yet not a peep. So you can tell me all you like that you're worried about me and my pocketbook and our middle class worries and woes, but yet they're going to probably gladly take on that particular pay raise. All right. We were wondering and waiting to see and hear what the FFAW was going to say in response to the fisheries protest. And you know the issues. They're talking about increased capacity in the processing sector, outside buyers, and none of these daily constraints for when they can fish, how much they can land, those types of things. So when the FFAW represents both the harvesters and plant workers, it was always going to be a tricky balance to strike whatever comments that they would come forward with. Now, they're apparently talking in full-throated support for the protesters and their concerns. Now, I think it's also fair to say that some, or if not many, or most of some of the protesters are dismayed with the representation they get from the union. Not me saying it, we've heard many harvesters on the show say exactly that. But now the FFAW is on their side, saying that through President Greg Priddy, the fish harvesters have been disadvantaged for long enough. It's not my industry, not my place to say yay or nay, and of course, who cares what I think. But the whole concept of outside buyers, it probably makes sense, right? Competition can indeed lead to more price or better price for the product. But I suppose the outside buyers would also come with a very thrifty mindset. They don't want to overpay just cause. So it's a curious issue that I really think we can flesh out a little bit further. The province is considering these structural changes. Whether or not they can be made in time for this lucrative snow crab season remains to be seen. But now the FFAW say they are indeed on side, understand, and are speaking on behalf of their fish harvesters, and maybe potentially not necessarily in the best interest of plant workers, albeit the province relies heavily on temporary foreign workers to fill the rosters at the processing plants. But you want to take it on? Let's go. All right, let's get back into the housing business. So yesterday there was an announcement between the Mayor of the City of St. John's, Danny Breen, and Labour Minister Seamus O'Regan for housing monies coming from the $4 billion Housing Accelerator Fund. So when the city initially went in asking for $2.8 million for 91 housing units, told by Federal Housing Minister Sean Fraser, not good enough. Okay, so in October the city went back to the federal government asking for $18.5 million to build some 475 housing units. Apparently that was too much, because now the landed on amount is $10.4 million to build 280 units within the city over the next 3 years. Okay. In addition to that, Mayor Breen, when we talk about things like density, He's basically said that people are going to have to be more open-minded to the fact that their neighborhoods may indeed change when we talk about more apartment buildings, and yes, building in a more dense fashion versus what has long been the feature of this city and municipalities across the country is building out, the concept of urban sprawl. That's going to be a tough one. I mean, even when we talk about the conversation we had with the Mayor of Bay Roberts, Walter Yetman, regarding low-income housing, which is not really the right phrase, it's affordability. So that is going to be a tough sell. The mayor says there'll still be opportunity for people to voice their concerns, but asking for open-mindedness. And of course, it's not that long ago that the city of Mount Pearl also received $6.1 million, expected to build 2,000 units in the city over the next 10 years. The 6.1 is for 180 units. Nowhere inside of this do we really get down to the brass tacks of bureaucracy and efficiency. I think the municipalities are aware that they have to do a much better job on that front, but action is going to be the real case study here. Not just saying you understand that there's a concern, there was timing of permitting and the duplication of effort and inspection times, but good to see the money come in the door. And whether or not that actually achieves the affordability window, which is a moving target to say the very least, but here we go, and people are going to very likely have to have a different mindset about how these homes are going to be built, where they're going to be built, how dense the population of your neighborhood may indeed become in the future. And then you try to add these conversations to the forecasted need for housing starts in this province. 60,000 housing units over 6 years. Last year there was somewhere in and around just shy of 1,000 housing starts. So these sound like good starts, but if the population forecast and if the forecasted need for additional housing units is accurate, we're still ways away. What do you think? Let's go. Okay. This is a curious one. And sometimes, you really have to consider the self-serving agenda of some of these petitions or pleas on behalf of the business community or the investment community with the federal government. And this is about pension funds. All right. So, of course, when the pension funds are invested here in the country, it sees a big potential uptick in economic activity. And, of course, for folks who have now signed this letter, 92 what they call prominent senior executives, investment managers, and individual investors have asked the federal government to do something about how Canadian investments are made with the pension funds. Okay. Canadian equity investments are down to about 1/10 of the total, more than $3 trillion in total pension assets. Very little gets invested back in the country. But now, of course, if you are a senior executive, an investment manager, an investor yourself, then yeah, if the pension funds get invested more and more in this country, then that's good for you. But it's also good, I think, for the country at large. The Deputy Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, says the federal government will work collaboratively with Canadian pension funds to create an environment that encourages and identifies more opportunities for investments in Canada by pension funds. It's a bit of a word salad, but we'll see what it goes. The issue here is the capitalization of our own stock market. Last year, Canada's stock market capitalization represented just 2.7% of the 109 trillion global market. Consequently, these pension funds are looking for very large companies, major infrastructure projects, which are suitable for those types of large investments. But it sounds like a good idea, but we also have to sift through and recognize that the letter has been penned by people who have legitimate skin in the game. So you want to talk about that. Let's go. All right, let's go to the grocery store. A couple of things here. So we know that the margins are very similar inside the world of the large grocery retailers, but their earnings, they're up. It's just undeniable. Sobeys, for the last quarter, the rise was 8.5% to $134.2 million. This time last year, $125.7 million. So people will talk about corporate greed, even though the margins have not changed dramatically, if at all, for some of the majors. But sales reached $7.49 billion compared with roughly $7.48 billion a year ago. So it's not like they're struggling mightily. Important to recognize that inside the doors and the walls of a grocery store is not just food, all kinds of stuff, whether it be pharmaceuticals and other dry goods and clothes and the like, but Sobeys' earnings are up. And I've mentioned the fact that Loblaws is test driving you having to scan your receipt to get out of the store because theft is up, and that's probably their own self-made problem, given the fact they've introduced more and more self-checkouts. An emailer throughout the night, he sent me a note saying, went to the grocery store, went to the meat counter, asked for a couple of ribeyes to be cut for him, and then he was told, when you are getting your ribeyes, we're going to escort you directly to the cash. So the concept of being treated like a thief when all you're doing is shopping is ridiculous. Look, if the grocery stores have created this problem of their own accord, how can that possibly be acceptable for folks to be legitimately treated like criminals without having done anything? And a reminder, this for business lawyers, you cannot and should not be stopped on your way out of a store unless they have evidence you've done something wrong. So even checking your receipt or opening your bag or scanning your receipt, this is problematic. It's bad business, and it's probably not even legal. So don't be bullied when you go to the store. If you've done nothing wrong, then take your stuff that you paid your hard-earned money for and walk out the door, get in your vehicle and drive away, and consider whether or not that's the place you want to do business in the future. But imagine, I'd like a couple of ribeyes, sir. Okay, here they are. Now I'll take you by the arm and I'll walk you to the cash and I'll watch you pay for them. Unreal. Let me just keep going. Oh, and sticking with that for a second, congratulations to the students at J.R. Smallwood Collegiate up in Labrador. So, these are type of these coupling of good life lessons. Recognizing the need at the food banks and trying to do something fun. So they collected some 203 or 208 boxes of cereal, and what they did with them is they took over the halls of the school and they created a cereal box domino. So they've learned a couple of things. Give back to the community, all the while incorporating a bit of fun and student pride in school and self and class. So bravo to the teachers apparently who saw this video on TikTok, and then they brought it into their own school, and all those cereal boxes were donated to the food bank. So bravo to the teachers and the students involved in that particular effort. And speaking of TikTok, social media, good and bad. So we know the concerns people have voiced about TikTok. They passed a bill in the United States and Congress about banning that social media platform. But apparently last September, our federal government conducted a national security review of TikTok. Never really told anyone in the country that it was going on. And so inside that window, we already know that government employees are not allowed to have TikTok on their government-issued phones. And the national security threat is all about whether or not there needs to be a divestment by Chinese business and government out of that platform so that we know that the information is not being harvested and shared and jeopardizing Canadian national security. But, when you do things behind closed doors and under the cloak of darkness, people just don't like it because just further erosion of trust in what they're going at. So you want to take that on. Let's go. A couple of quickies before we get to you. Where did I put that one? I want to say congratulations to Holly Hogan. She's a biologist. We've had Holly Hogan on this program in the past. She has won the BMO Winterset Award for her nonfiction book, Message in the Bottle, $12,500 prize. And amongst the finalists was also William Ping from the CBC. Congratulations, William. And Holly's husband, Michael Crummy, who's, of course, extraordinary. So inside that book and the discussion we had, and congratulations on the victory, was not only recounting her 3 decades at sea, and she wasn't even available to be at Government House to collect her prize because she was at sea. The real focus beyond her adventures was the plastics in the water. People get uptight and upset when we talk about reducing our use of plastic and some of the bans that have been proposed by the federal government, some of which have been overturned in the Supreme Court of Canada. But the amount of microplastic in the ocean becomes part of the food chain. So when people are mad about hearing that you might have to use a straw that's not plastic, or a fork that's not plastic, or a spoon that's not plastic, or a shopping bag that's not plastic, at some point, the acknowledgement of basically we are then going to eat our own microplastics is sort of a strange circle of life. And congratulations to Holly on the victory. I want to say happy trails to our friend and colleague, once again from the CBC, Anthony Germain. Yesterday he hung up the headset. Pretty storied career, whether it be hosting here in the province, of course, On the Go and The Morning Show. He was one of the co-anchors on Here and Now. He's been internationally traveled as a journalist, dropped into war zones, but now he's retired and maybe going to focus on teaching. I can't put words in Anthony's mouth, but congratulations on a stellar career to you, sir. And coming up this weekend, Sunday, St. Patrick's Day itself, at the Newfoundland Embassy downtown from 1 to 4 on Sunday. Please drop by and get involved with VOCM Cares, the Newfoundland Growlers, and the Newfoundland Embassy. They're raising money and foods for the Community Food Sharing Association. We know the need is real, and the donations have slid backwards. So get a chance to meet some of the growlers, drop off your food donation or your monetary donation. It's going to be 50-50. And surprises, Todd Skirving, the captain of the growlers, was here in studio with Ben and Jared in this morning. Fine fella, so get a chance to meet Todd. I think Ben Murphy's going to be there. Get a chance to meet Ben. So pack the pub, Sunday 1 to 4. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. Steve's going to kick us off talking about trades and L. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Just saw this email during the break, and it's about the fisheries protest. And they'd asked me to announce the fact that there is going to be a protest today at Churns Rogers' office in Wareham. So if that's what you're interested in participating in, you can do that. On Monday, March the 18th, there's also one planned for outside of Minister Haggie's office in Ganner starting at 8 a.m. So there you go. Let's go to line number 1. Steve, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty. How are you?
Doing okay, sir. How about you?
Good. Just on my coffee break here, and I wanted to call you. I've been listening, long-time listener, rare caller, but I've been listening a lot about this housing shortage in Canada, not only here in St. John's, but all throughout Canada. And the thing that don't get enough attention is what skilled people are going to build these homes. Just take, for instance, I have a couple of buddies, like I'm self-employed, I do handyman stuff, but I have buddies that want to get into the trades. They don't want to go to Bonavista or to Buren to do plumbing or framing, carpentry, electrical. There's so much demand. If you go on a job bank, you'll see the top 10 trades, no problem. And there's people wanting to go to school, but the government should be probably even paying for this education. If they really want to solve this crisis, like a wartime effort as they claim, let's make this free. Let's get these people signed up. There's a lot of people who want to be plumbers, heavy equipment mechanics, framers, electricians. All this is going to be needed, cement workers and everything else. So that's just one thing. And the other thing about the housing is nobody's talking about universal design. So a lot of my customers are seniors, and nobody wants stairs. Nobody wants, narrow hallways. This kind of stuff needs to be thought of. No good to buy homes that 99% of us can't live in as we age older, and then we have to modify and go through all this again. So that's two things that probably just wanted to bring up that don't get a lot of attention, and maybe it will.
Well, I try to give it attention because we can put all the money we want in front of developers, what have you, but if you don't have the skilled tradespeople, then it's just money sitting in a bank account. It's not actually being utilized because there's a skilled trade shortage across the country. I don't know if people really recognize and understand how big that is, but it's massive. If you talk to the construction industry umbrella groups, they all say the exact same thing. In addition to that, they all talk about the time it takes to build anything. So the carry costs and the frustrations and the anxiety that it creates is completely unnecessary. So if, as you say, a wartime effort is required here in the housing market, then all of those things have to be adjudicated as a result. So when it comes to skilled trades, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what you propose. So are you saying that maybe the government should indeed be investing in covering tuition? There has been lots of pots of money over the years for supports for people who are entering into the training for a skills trade. And location is always going to be tricky because unless we want the government directly involved in establishing vocational schools, as opposed to simply the monetary support they currently provide, then we might be setting ourselves up as well, because then it becomes the politics of where it should be. And if we talk about population density, then I'm sure people on the West Coast would be quite frustrated if the next big vocational school paid for and funded by the government was built in St. John's or in Paradise or somewhere. Then there's another issue that, of course, could blow up in their face. But I get your point. Without the skilled tradespeople, we're just talking about numbers. We're not actually building.
No, it's just a pipe dream. It's they get other money to bomb countries and for war and genocide, but yet you can't operate our own people to do this. So it just makes no sense. And as you listen, you don't hear all this in the news, but you listen to Openline day in day out. You get to see the problems in all the little towns, but it doesn't get much attention. Thank God for this show, which hopefully we'll survive and stay on the here somehow. But no, that's it. I just wanted to bring it to your attention and hopefully to get some traction. Yeah,
hopefully it survives at least for the next little bit while I edge up towards retirement. Oh, man. Steve, I appreciate the time. 2 important points you made this morning. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Eddie.
You're welcome, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 2. Take more to the NDP member for Lab West. That's Jordan Brown. Jordan, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for having me this morning.
Happy to do it.
Yes, no, I just wanted to call in and talk about the House closing early there this past week. And I think we're on track now for probably one of the least amount of sitting days in the House in quite some time. I think it's one of the lowest sitting days even since I've been elected in 2019.
Well, I think last year it was 39 days. The calendar that I saw, I think I counted 46. Now, only sat for 7 days before they adjourned until Budget Day next Wednesday. I'm never really sure as to why politicians sit as few days as they do, whether it be provincially and or federally, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. And like we said, I was talking with other members who've been in the House for quite a long time, a little longer than mine, and they've said this is probably some of the least sitting days they've seen in their time as members as well. And it's what is disappointing is that there's stuff still left on the order paper to be done this week. There's still stuff that was still sitting in committee of the whole that wasn't done this week, and then they turn around and say the legislative agenda is complete, which is bogus, to say the least. And what's frustrating is that, you know, we got so much to do in this province. We have a lot of stuff that needs to be looked at, debated, and so on and so forth. And then they turn around and pull a stunt like this. This is just absolutely disappointing. And you know, it's sad for, you know, the democracy of this province.
Oh, you know, people talk about the Information Act that's sitting there. It had been tabled before, and I can't remember exactly what happened for it to go by the wayside. But what do you think is some of the key issues? Because we can talk about big, broad strokes, housing and healthcare and cost of living and the fishery. But insofar as what was on the order paper, what do you think really should have seen the light of day in this sitting before the adjournment was called?
Well, obviously one is the Access to Information Act. You know, that was brought in back in March of 23. Yes, there's some stuff that we want to talk about. I think there was issues we asked about, you know, when it came to the Privacy Commissioner and his take of it and stuff like that. But, you know, it took almost a year, and it only went from first reading to committee in the last year. So this is something that they wanted to get done, but they decided to just leave it in committee and close the doors for, you know, a couple of days. And this is what we find frustrating, is that we're there. Like I said, I have to fly all the way down from Labrador to sit in the House, which is another expense in itself, that I'm there as a member from all the way from up here, have to sit down in the House, and we have to debate this. And now they turn around and say, you know, we're going to close the House. And then, you know, I got to go all the way back home to my family. So this is, you know, costing the province money as well. So they're just playing it all willy-nilly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get frustrated, but let me add this to the conversation. It's one thing to be in the House of Assembly, tabling legislation, debates being taking place, question period happening. But there's also the concept, Jordan, of sometimes sitting and counting the numbers of days sitting is as much about optics as it is getting the people's business done. Because it seems to me, as an outsider looking in, that there is still plenty of wasted time in the House of Assembly. There's plenty of political rhetoric, trying to get opportunities for sound bites and banging on the top of desks and those types of barbs being flicked around. So do you think we're even seeing our 40 elected members of the House of Assembly acting appropriately, actually attending to people's business versus the theatre of politics?
Well, yeah, and I understand that part of it too. Yes, question period, there's that whole aspect of there. But after that 30 minutes of question period, that's when actual debate happens. That's when actual legislation actually starts getting debated in the House of Assembly. That's when actually all that stuff does happen. That stuff happens, and it's not picked up by the media. It's not covered for the most part, to be honest. And that's when we want the work actually gets done. That's where the late sittings come in. That's where all that kind of stuff happens in. So, yes, there is stuff that's on the order paper that needs to be done. There is stuff that needs to be done. There's legislation that we're asking for. There's debate that has to be happened. There's debate on all kinds of other issues and stuff like that that needs to be done. But yet, you know, just to stop in the middle of the order paper, decide, you know what, we're done for the week, goodbye, and then having that up, just closing the House like that. You know, it's disappointing, you know, that we have a parliamentary system. We have a Westminster system that, you know, that does work and that does actually, you know, get things through and debate and all that. So right now, my whole point of it is that, yes, there's that 30 minutes of question period that everyone sees on the news, but at the end of the day, there is other stuff that does get done in that House Assembly.
I appreciate the time. Anything else this morning, Jordan?
No, absolutely. Thank you for letting me on. Thank you, and have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's Jordan Brown, NDP member for Lab West. Just before we get to the break, I don't know if you're familiar with Peter Neri. Peter was a well-renowned Newfoundland historian, co-authored a load of books with Patrick O'Flaherty. Peter Neri has passed. I believe he passed away yesterday. We do have some familial relations with the Nerys, of course. My mother is a Nery. So our condolences to Peter's family and his friends. And I've certainly read some of the books that he co-authored with Mr. O'Flaherty in the past. And now both have passed. So our condolences to the friends and family of Peter Nery. Let's take a break. When we come back, Gord Evans is in the queue. He's the president of the St. John's Outside Workers, talking about the most recent snowstorm. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the president of the St. John's Outside Workers. That's Gord Evans. Good morning, Gord. You're on the air.
Hi, Paddy. How you doing?
Best kind this morning. How about you?
Not too bad. Top of the morning to you.
The very same to you, sir. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Anyway, Paddy, before I get into my topic, I want to acknowledge the passing of a dear friend of mine and a co-worker with the city. He's a union activist. He's the Grand Knight at Knights of Columbus. That's Mr. Wayne Furlong, who passed away suddenly earlier this week. I want to send out my heartfelt condolences to his wife, Paula, and his 2 sons, Wayne and Chad. His funeral service was actually today. Rest in peace, my friend.
And we offer the same sentiments. Thanks for that, Gord.
All right, Paddy, getting into the latest snowfall that we had there. I've been listening to some comments on the airways, and my phone has been lit up like a Christmas tree the best part of this week. And as I heard you say many times, you talk about weather, politics, hockey, Montreal versus Toronto, and you can get a conversation going here. You can turn into a debate, and it can sometimes turn into a racket, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm a 33-year man with the city of St. John's, and I've been involved in snow removals for well over 25 years. When you get into the removals, Paddy, it's a complicated process, and safety always got to be your number one priority. You got these big loaders and everything downtown, and you got pedestrians now walking around, and it's quite complicated, right? We do have a very experienced and trained staff, and we do a bang-up job. And when we complete a street, Paddy, and we do a removal, when we pull out, it's open for business. My concern this morning is a lot of negative comments. I hear people, and they're after calling in, and on some of the news broadcasts, you're walking down the sidewalk, and you run into a snow bank, and you got to go out into the street and jump back on the sidewalk and jump back and forth. And I'm getting these calls, and it's getting very frustrating. So basically, what I want the taxpayers to know, Paddy, is we got contractors brought in, and they're doing different sections of the city. I mean, obviously, we just couldn't open up everything after the last dump we had, 80 centimetres. So St. John's is a very unique city, Paddy, and contractors are coming in, and it's probably not their specialty doing snow removals, in a city like St. John's, but we do need them now and then. So I want to make the residents aware that a lot of the work that is not getting the attention that our guys would probably give it. So, I mean, let's face it, contractors are out to make money. They provide a service, but they're at the end of the line, they want to make a profit. We're there to provide a service. So I want to jump into my next concern, Paddy. There was a removal done in Kenmount Terrace, and the mayor was on and actually addressed this, and it was a curb-to-curb removal, and curb-to-curb means no sidewalks. So we went out to tender, and the work was completed, and the tender, Paddy, was $350,000. That number kind of blew my mind when I heard it, so I went up and I spoke to management at the city there. So it was basically one subdivision. I know we had a major snow event, but it was to remove the snow in that subdivision, and it came at a cost of $350,000. And I just done the quick math. I said, if every subdivision in town had to be done with a contractor. And then I said to myself, this is not sidewalks. If we threw the sidewalks in on top of that, that contract probably would have been $500,000 to do one subdivision after that major snowfall. And I'm saying, man, oh man, these numbers are just, they blew me out of the water, actually, right?
Gord, what do you think that cost would have been had it been the city staff and machinery that took care of it? Do we have a comparison?
I never done the breakdown like that, Paddy, but, you're not going to go in an afternoon and clean up Kenmount Terrace.
No.
And, it probably would have been a 3 or 4 night process. So we would have went in. The way it works when we have snowfalls, Paddy, we got to hire on rental trucks. I got no issue with that. When we hire on rental trucks, there's a set rate. If you're paying $100 or $150 or $180 an hour for a truck, at the end of the day, when that removal is done the next morning, if you had 20 trucks hired on, you know exactly what the cost is to the taxpayers. But when you just get an open bid and you go in and you do something like that, and I mean, you got to break down how much equipment and everything was put in there. But I just thought it was, the number just blew me out of the water. And I said, like, you're in a subdivision down East Paddy, Airport Heights is a subdivision in Cowan Heights. If we had to go into all these subdivisions and pay $500,000 to clean up this dump of snow, the $25 million city budget, it'd probably jump to 30 pretty swift, right?
Yeah, we're already gone through it. I guess we're into some of the leftovers from years past for snow removal and ice management. Gord, let me ask you a question. Because, when people complain, everybody wants their street done now. I get that. And with a big dump of snow, it will take time, granted. What I also hear sometimes is the choreography issue. So if you have a sidewalk snow plow go down, clean off the sidewalk, and a plow comes behind and fills it back in, how does the choreography work? Because we've seen instances like that. And I've got a couple more questions about the process, but when people question whether or not we're duplicating work unnecessarily because the big plow went after the sidewalk plow, stuff like that.
Paddy, that's been an ongoing debate ever since we enhanced the sidewalk program over there. And I'm after asking senior managers over there, is it pressure from the councillors? I guess it is. Are councillors getting pressure from the residents? I guess they are. It seems like some people think that after a dump, you can have the road done and you can have the sidewalk done the next morning. Paddy, that just don't happen. My famous quote to a lot of my friends is, God help, if you take a heart attack in your house, Paddy, that ambulance or the fire truck is not driving down the sidewalk to save your life. Roads should be the number one priority. I preach that and I preach that. And God help, there's a lot of residents that, they're on foot patrol. They got to walk everywhere they go. They got to get to a bus stop, and my heart goes out to them. But roads still should be the number one priority. So I don't know how we lost track of that. Like I said, it's pressure from the residents, I guess, and it's pressure from the councillors. And this day and age, we got bike lanes going through the city now. Everybody wants to be out doing a bit of exercising. But at the end of the day, Paddy, the road's got to be open first. That's my mentality on that, right?
Yeah, fair enough, but I guess if the process was, if you focus on roads first and the sidewalk second, then at least when the sidewalk got cleared, it wouldn't be filled back in by a plough coming behind it. I guess that's the concern people have. Get to another couple that people point to all the time. Okay, so I'm operating a plough. I'm going back to the depot on Blackmarsh Road. I'm driving over streets that could indeed require another scrape, but I got the blade up. Or I'm going along and I got the blade down when there's not really enough snow to constitute a plow being on that street. So how does that work? Because is there a requirement that if you return to the depot to shift to change operators, that you cannot have your plow down, your blade down, if that's not your area?
That policy came in a while ago, Paddy, but it's pretty well after coming back to the discretion of the operator there now. There was certain times and they were really monitoring the wear on the cutting edge on the blade. Should you be drop the blade if you're not on your own route? And it come back to the discretion of the operator. If you're driving back to the depot and all of a sudden there's a drift that blew across the road while the other operator wasn't in that area, knock your blade down, Paddy, and do what's due in the name of safety. But one time it really got tight over there over when you could drop your blade and everything, but the discretion is after coming back to the city workers on that.
Good. I've sometimes wondered why the ploughs and or the trucks have to go all the way back to the depot as opposed to the next operator being brought to them. Are there other reasons that I'm not aware of as to why the machine would have to return to the depot to see a new plow operator hop on board?
Well, Paddy, the main area for salt is at the depot, and the main area for fuel is at the depot. And usually when you fuel up a vehicle and you go with your load of salt or whatever, you can pretty well get your shift out of a tank of fuel. So when there is a change of shifts, which right now we're on 12-hour shifts, so we have 24/7 coverage right now. When we're not, we're on 8 hours, and there's a 4-hour interval, and we're on 8, and there's another 4-hour interval. Need be, we just carry on with the 12-hour shifts. If not, we might keep a half a dozen hands back just for trouble spots or whatever between shifts. That's the goal of the city. But like I said, at the end of the day, you try to come back from the closure of your shift and you have your truck ready or your loader ready to give it to the next guy. That's usually used to save time, and when Buddy shows up fresh, he jumps in the machine and he's off to the rodeo, all right?
When it comes to saving time, has there ever been thought or conversation inside the city and or the workers that you represent about the wing roll and filling in people's driveways? In certain parts of the country, they actually pay pretty close attention to how the plows operate in residential areas, and maybe the wing roll can do a second scrape to remove some of the real heavy chunks, because we know we've got an aged population. Some of the wing rolls that were at the end of my driveway during the most recent storm, lucky I got a couple of big strapping young fellas to help me clear the driveway, or I would have been doomed, and I'm only in my mid-50s. So is there ever any talk about how the wing roll ends up in the driveway?
Well, Paddy, most people, when the storm is over, they want the snow cleared and push it in. So you go out once and do your driveway, and then you might have to go out and clean up a little small wing row from the secondary cleaning or whatever. But it's nothing worse than a plough going back and forth the road 4 or 5 times, and sometimes that happens in a major snow event, and someone will go out and do the driveway. The plough's gone back the road an hour and a half later, you go out and do it again. My advice is to wait, but sometimes you just can't wait when the snow is so heavy. It's just very frustrating. I'll just break down the routes, Paddy, and how it works out. We got 9 high service routes in the city. They're your multi-lanes, they're your arterials, your Topsail roads, your Torbay roads. Then we got 26 regular routes, and these routes got an A and a B part to them. Now, Paddy, a regular route is not a parking lot. A regular route, you're looking at 28 kilometres on average. So you're looking at 28 kilometres of road. So when you break the route down in half, a truck does a route, which there are 26 of them, but when you get 10 centimetres hit the ground, the truck kind of goes back to the depot and the 2 loaders comes out. I mean, you're kind of wasting your time throwing out salt then. So then the route will be cut in half. So the 26 turns into 52. So then your 2 loaders will go out and you'll take a half a route each, and then you work on that. So, Paddy, when a truck is running around doing a route, he can go 25, 30 kilometres an hour, with safety in mind. Then all of a sudden you comes back and you bring your loader out. You're down then to 10 or 20 kilometres an hour. I mean, you got to be way more cautious in the loader. Then when you get back to this dump that we just had recently, I mean, we pretty well got all blower work ahead of us now. When you put blowers out, Paddy, they're not going down the road as a truck. A blower is going down the road. The operator got his head on a swivel. I mean, you're watching everything. If you're passing over driveways with cars in them, you could have kids out playing. You might have a nice set of shrubs on your front lawn or whatever. But the blower actually brings the service down. You're probably doing 4 or 5 kilometres an hour in a blower. So the whole process slows down. And I mean, you do up to 26 routes, Paddy, and you do up to 28 kilometres a route. You're looking at, a good number of kilometres a route. And like I said, when it gets to blower work, the whole process just goes to a snail's pace, right?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I appreciate when I see the blower operating in the neighbourhood because, like it or not, some of the real narrow, windy streets and parts of the city, if it wasn't for the blower, it becomes a cow path. I mean, 2 cars can't even pass each other going in opposite directions sometimes when we have these big storms and all of a sudden my driveway extends 6 feet out into the street itself. Gord, I appreciate the time and the sentiment. Final message to you, sir, before I have to go.
I just want to say, Paddy, our workers, we usually do 90% of the removals most of the time. Like, we got no problem handling the 15, 20 centimetre falls. But when we got one of these major events, there's a hefty price involved, but we have to bring in the contractors. And I say to some people, some cities in Canada, they bring in the army. So I guess it's okay for us every now and then to need a contractor to help us out at the end of the day, right?
I appreciate your time this morning, Gord. Thanks a lot.
All right, Paddy, thanks for listening. All the listeners out there, have a great Paddy's Day weekend.
The same
Cheers.
to you, Gord. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paddy. Bye-bye.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Tima's with the Iranian moms of Newfoundland and Labrador talking about the upcoming Nowruz festival. Don't go away. Welcome back to the programme. Well, according to Iranian astronomer Tusi, the first day of the official new year, Nowruz, was always the day on which the sun entered Aries before noon. To talk about the upcoming Nowruz festival is Tima on line 4. Tima, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you, Paddy, for the opportunity. I appreciate the time. I want to use this opportunity and invite everybody that is around to the Nowruz Festival, which will be on this Sunday, March 17th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the campus, the university campus, the Vale Auditorium, core science facilities. So I know that we still have snow around, but the spring is coming. Officially, March 20th will be the first day of spring, and we as Iranian and most of the people around around that area in the Middle East, like Afghanistan, like Turkey, Azerbaijan, and many other around Iran, they celebrate this day as their new year. And we want to see you guys there. It's going to be fun, lots of activity, dancing, music, special activities for kids. And we would like to share our culture and celebration.
Tima, is March 21st the first day of the Iranian calendar?
Yes, in Iran, in Iran we don't use the January to December calendar. We use the different calendar which starts the spring, first of spring, and ended up the last day of the winter.
Is Nowruz a secular holiday, or is it very much focused on people of the Muslim faith, or how does it work?
No, it's a kind of very ancient thing. It's back to Zoroastrian time. It's about more than 3,000 years that people celebrate this occasion as the New Year. It's more like, it's the connection of everybody from the same ancestor, probably, I should say, that they gathered. It regardless of their religious, their skin color, everything, they will be the same group and celebrate the New Year. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. It's more like cultural things.
Fair enough. Say, for instance, when we talk about Christmas, we'll say, and there's symbolic objects, like a Christmas tree. Are there symbolic objects associated with Nowruz?
Yes, we decorate the table with special 7 things that started with the letter S in Iranian language, and all of them represent something. For example, we have sabze, which is a sprout, which is a symbol of rebirth.
Interesting.
Or we have garlic, which is a symbol of health.
Now, I hate to commercialize an ancient tradition, but, once again, with some of the cultural celebrations that we would be familiar with in Canada more so, are there traditional gift exchanges, or are there different rituals like dancing or singing or that component? Tell us about it. Yeah,
it is a lot. It includes a lot of dancing and music. And the gift part is more about the kids. There is a kind of Santa in during the Christmas time. We have Amu Nowruz, which is Uncle Nowruz, that is coming and give the gifts to the kids. And but it's more about gathering, family gathering. Friends and families are getting together. We have a special foods, which is fish is the main part, and rice. So we gather around, have this food, dance a lot, listen to music, and play many games.
What role does, say, for instance, what am I trying to ask here? Mythology. Because if we're talking about ancient traditions, of course, there would be lots of myths and mythology involved with, and maybe some of those stories will be shared. So how far back do you look when you talk about the mythology associated with a new day, Nowruz?
Many years ago, people, back in Iran, they really was frustrated about the winter time and the coldness, and when this time coming, emotionally and psychologically, they change their mood and they decide to clean all of the dust because of the charcoal that they use to keep themselves warm, or woods that they burning to keep themselves warm. So they clean the house, and then they, because of the nature is being happy and renewed, they become more enthusiastic about the life, more energetic. They want to celebrate. So the king of the time decided to announce that as the new year, and they throw this celebration. So it's officially is a holiday from the Nowruz day for 13 days. And they have lots of gatherings, lots of music and dancing festivals. And at the same time, it's a kind of respecting the elderlies in the family. So if you have the old uncle that you haven't visit him for a long time, this is a chance that you can use. And like Christmas time, that is a family gathering more than the New Year, which is the friendly gathering. So it's the same, but we as Iranian that we are far from home and we call Newfoundland proudly the new home, we decided to share this culture with you and everybody that's living around to, have some conversation about it and introduce it.
Tima, is there a Nowruz greeting?
Yes.
What is it?
It's Happy Nowruz or Nowruzetan Piruz.
Nowruz, say the second one again. I'll listen a bit more attentively.
Yes, Nowruzetan Piruz.
Fantastic. Is it a one-day celebration, or like, for instance, we have the 12 days of Christmas? I hate going back to Christmas, but just trying to make some context.
No, it makes sense totally. When I started to explain it to my daughter, I used the same, compare it to Christmas because it's more sensible. So it's it's 13 days of celebration, starting from the time of the New Year happen, which will be different during the different years. For example, this year in Newfoundland time, it's going to be March 20th at 3 a.m., 3 minutes in a.m., 3 minutes after midnight, I meant. So the first day is Nowruz, and you usually go and visit the grandpas and grandmas on your side, and then gradually by time within these 12 days, you will visit your friends and family, which we call the Eid Didani, or visiting others. And at the end, it's going to be ended up, the holiday season is going to be ended up by Sizdah Bedar, or the 13th day of Nowruz, which people usually, depends on the weather conditions specifically. So they will go out and have some picnic together and bring some of the elements of the Nowruz table back to the nature, the sprout that we have on the nature, just bring it back to the nature. And, we believe that, we need to respect the nature because of all of the big good things that they're providing us.
Tima,
and then the celebration will be end.
Terrific. Before we run out of time and get to the newscast, I'll give the folks the details for the gathering this weekend.
Yes, it will be on Sunday, March 17, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's going to be in Memorial University campus, the Vale Auditorium, the Core Science Building. There will be a free parking available in the parking lot. They can find us on Facebook as Nowruz Festival. And this event is organizing by Iranian Moms NL and Iran Alliance, the two group of Iranians that they are active here. Hope to see you there.
I appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for the call. Happy Nowruz.
And happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, bye-bye. There we go. That was interesting. Let's take a break. When we go back, the fisheries protest scheduled for outside Insurance Rogers' office in Wareham. More calls about the fishery. Oh, Gillian Kiley's in the queue. She's the artistic director at Artistic Fraud, and they're bringing Between Breaths back to the stage at the LSP Wall. Gorgeous performance. Well, let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Waiting for some guidance here from David. That's a 3, Dave? Is that what I see? Okay, let's keep going here. Let's go to line number 3. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Paddy. How are you this morning?
That's kind. How about you?
Doing good. Following a lot with this inshore fishery there. Can't release my name. This is how bad this industry has got. I just wanted to, I guess what spurred me to call was in light of all this, and I'm in a part of remote Newfoundland where it's not easy to get to the protest, so I figured I'd chime in here and give my 2 cents. But I want to clarify something, because I know there's a lot of muddy, mixed information. A lot of the public is not exactly sure about all this and what's going on and how it's actually affecting people. And case in point, that letter Minister Lovelace sent to FFAW yesterday, and it's only a matter of some of it's semantics. But boy, I tell you, people can hang on to semantics and work it in their benefit when the time comes. But in that letter, it states snow crab, and I know on the Avalon and the northeast coast, snow crab is it's the species that keeps vessels going. But I just want to remind the public that once you leave the Avalon and Northeast Coast and move to the more remote areas of Newfoundland and all up the Northern Peninsula, snow crab plays a very small factor in our overall fishing. And, some people rely heavily on lobster. Some are turbot, some are redfish. This is affecting every species, every fish harvester. And I just want to make sure the public understands that because, what people will ask, well, what does competition do? What about the plant workers? This and that. Case in point, and I'll throw a species out there, halibut. Opens first week of May, the same time lobster opens. The plants are so beyond max capacity dealing with snow crab and lobster, they refuse to buy these other species. These are many harvesters around this province rely on these species for their income. They don't have 100,000 pounds of crab to catch. They don't have, in some cases, lobster licenses. And this is where it's gotten to a state of very deep concern and possible financial doom for a lot of these harvesters. And I'm not talking people with $1 million boats and the bigger enterprises. There's 2,600 and I forget the number now, inshore harvesters. And that's down from about 24,000 after the moratorium. We've got to get past making a decision on the industry to protect one element of the industry. And nothing against plant workers. We all have family and friends. They're all plant workers. But we've seen our fish plants and our fish plant workers decimated in the last 25, 30 years. And if they keep going the way they're going, we won't need any plant workers because there will be no more inshore fishery. This is how dangerously real this is.
And case in point about capacity, we had Rick Crane on the show. He's a fisherman out in Cox's Cove. He actually spent about $500,000 of his own money for a 50,000-pound lobster holding tank. Some of that was about capacity. Some of that was about fluctuation in price. But point taken. And you're right, the fishery is much bigger than the snow crab. I think it gets a lot of attention because not only how lucrative it is, but all the controversy last year with a 6-week tie-up. I guess that's probably why we hear more about that than we do with northern cod or capelin or redfish or turbot or halibut or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to remind the general public, too, as well, that by opening up to outside buyers does not mean that everything is going to be landed to an outside buyer and gone. It's just, it creates a free market. We wouldn't need to spend months and months negotiating prices on various species right down to the last minute before you go fishing. The market, in a free market, would automatically dictate the price of the product. And what's wrong with a little bit of competition? It's, after all, like I forget, I read so much, but someone said yesterday that, we're in a democratic society in Canada, and our fishery is run like it's in a communistic style country. And, you'd expect to see this type of stuff in Russia or China or Cuba. But in our world in 2024, we're told when we can go, when not to go, how much to bring. Sorry, we're not buying that. Sorry, we're not buying this. We're already choked by a very short fishing season. And to maximize the earnings is every fish harvester's goal, from the time they untie to the time the season's over. And to be restricted on the amount of product you can bring in, it's anti free enterprise.
Fair enough. I wonder, would the outside buyer concept work like people think it might work? Because if I'm an outside buyer representing, Marks and Spencer in the EU, or I'm representing some buyers down in the United States or Asia, wherever, I'm also coming with my profits in mind because I have the additional expense of shipping out the product whole to wherever I'm buying for and processing on site there. So I wonder, with their thrifty nature and their profitability front of mind, whether or not they'd be willing to pay more than what the market price set is here. That's something I think we haven't carefully really figured out. I understand the level of competition required, and yes, you're right, the restrictions in place in the fishery are extremely heavy-handed. It's the epitome of protectionism, but I just wonder whether or not we'd see any real further maximizing profit based on getting a bigger price per pound for whatever species. I just wonder how that would work.
Well, I kind of take a step back and look at it, and to open up to outside buyers. Nobody wants to lose a job or see product leave this province without it being maximized to its full potential. But we should not just directly assume that if a buyer comes from wherever, that he's shipping everything out whole. But a lot of product that we're talking about can't be shipped out whole. It has to be processed. we're a better place to process it than in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, and processing takes different forms. I mean, head off and gutted is pretty minimal processing. And I mean, once we did away with the minimum processing requirements to get involved with CETA, the free trade agreement with the European Union, people also need to remember there was tons of exemptions offered by the province for shipping a product with minimum processing or not at all. I mean, some things like redfish, there's not much you can do with it. It's a pretty tiny species. But those exemptions were long in place before we did away with the NPRs.
Yes, for sure. For sure. I just, well, that's all I got to say. I just wanted to clarify some of that because I think some of the information in the media is starting to muddy up a little bit. And, we're not looking for, this got nothing to do with price. We know roughly, most of us follow the markets, the Urner-Barry system. Yep. We know roughly where prices are going to fall. But this is solely about free enterprise. And let me add one more thing, Paddy, before I go. A huge number of that 2,600 and some odd inshore fish harvesters have loans with these companies. So and I'm talking anywhere from $250,000 to $2 million loans. And by restricting the purchase or the selling capacity of what you can harvest, I got to say, in my situation, I can't live long enough to pay off my enterprise. I'll soon be 50. By the time my gear comes ashore, I've just covered the interest since last year. The interest on most of these loans is 10.2%. So there's an element there hiding in the corner of all the situation that nobody wants to talk about and can, I guess, there's a huge profit for these companies in this interest. So it's time we look at a loan board again. It's time we look at freeing the harvester from the direct tie to one buyer and one buyer only. Yeah, that's about it. That's about all I got to say.
I understand the point. I'm glad you called the show this morning. And remember, when Fish NL was trying to become a representative union, going to the board trying to figure out what was actually the definition of a fisherman, which was a really strange exercise. Whether someone was a deckhand for a minimal amount of time, whether or not that constitutes them being a fisherman. We had numbers of 2,600 like you use. Fish NL saying it's more like 10,000. So the confusion in the fishery is overwhelming sometimes. But that's why I appreciate people who actually work in the industry to come on to talk about them, because you're the person on deck. You're the person catching and selling your product, not me. So I appreciate making time for the show.
All right, thanks, Paddy. You have a great day.
You too. All the best.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break right on time. When we come back, the artistic director at Artistic Fraud is Gillian Kiley. She's next. There we're going to talk about some Go Bus issues, the fisheries protests, Crown Lands, whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Well, Gillian Kiley was the artistic director of the National Arts Centre from 2012 to 2022. She was also the annual instructor of course at the National Theatre School of Canada. She's directed plays at the Stratford Festival. Now she joins us on line number one as the artistic director of Artistic Fraud, bringing Between Breaths back to the LSPU Hall. Gillian on 5. Good morning, Gillian. You're on the air.
Hi, Paddy.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I have to tell you, I'm not the artistic director at the company anymore. Robert Chafe is now. But other than that, I still direct all the shows. He writes them.
Fair enough. I think you were probably the artistic director for almost 20 years, though, right?
I was the artistic director for over 20 years, actually, but or probably exactly 20 years. I've never calculated that, but I was for a very long time, so it's no harm, no foul on your part, I'd say.
Well, I hate to shortchange one of the giants of theatre, Robert Chafe, so I'm glad you put that out there and clarified my misstatement.
I know I'm a beer, if not.
I love it. So Between Breaths is a gorgeous production. Let's get that out of the way first. And it's, just tell us the story itself, and then I have a couple of questions about the intricacies of theatre. Go ahead.
Sure. It's been one of the shows that we've made over the years. We've got a 30-year history. We've made quite a bit of work, but, there's a couple, maybe 10 that really stood out and made big national and international impact. And this is one of those. And this show really strikes the heart of Newfoundlanders in a way that's kind of special, I think. It's the story of John Leon, who is a fellow from North Dakota who came to Newfoundland and I guess he came in the 70s, and he came up here to study birds, but he ended up getting literally tangled up with whales. And what he used to do was go around and get whales who were entangled in fishing nets out of these nets. And part of why he was so special was that he would care for the nets as much as he cared for the whales. He really, the fish harvesters were a really big part of his thinking in how to save the whales, because he really thought the industry needed to be sustainable and the industry needed to be saved. And whales were a really big problem. And so his methods of really just getting his hands and head down underwater over the side of a boat and untangling the whales and saving the nets actually it became the way to do it. And now it's incorporated all over the world. So he's a kind of Newfoundland hero, somebody who came from away and did really good.
I mean, he saved somewhere in excess of 500 whales, and his attention to the gear is absolutely legendary. Later in life, though, Mr. Leon's story became very much about his battle with dementia. So when we talk about the inspirational component of his life professionally and the end-of-life struggles and the sadness associated, how do you make sure that I don't leave sad, but I leave inspired?
Well, because it's the same what Robert did, and again, credit to Robert. He made a beautiful piece of work, because the show works backwards. There's no surprise at the end that he, passes. But we really, what Robert did was really turn it around on its head, literally, because he tells the story backwards, and how the play works. It ends up that you see that his release from this, he had a terrible Lewy bodies dementia, which is kind of, not only in your head, but your whole body shuts down. And he really suffered with that. But it was such an interesting parallel between how he would release whales and how he was finally released from this grief that he was suffering at the end. So there's something actually really powerful and beautiful about that release. And I think that's why people leave, okay, there's a tear.
And there's nothing wrong with that, emotional reaction.
Nothing, but it's not sad like Bambi's mom. It's not like that at all. it's not sad the way it's done. I mean, it's tragedy, that the man died, because he was so special and so important. But when you consider, and this is true, I think, for everybody, we've been years, trying to write the show about what it means to have a legacy and what it means to die with a legacy. And we really, this one became the one that stands in that stead. I think it really speaks to how beautiful his life was, more than how tragic his death was. And I think that's really why the show is so successful.
Theatre is so unique. Of course, I sit down and watch television, not to say that I don't have to do my own mind work to get into the story and or the silver screen, but in theatre, especially when we're talking about set design. So you can't put a whale on the stage at the LSPU Hall, and a lot of the story will be about that. So between yourself and Robert Shave talking about how the audience has to interact with it. I have to fill in some of the blanks. It's one of those things where there's a bit of energy sapped when you go to see a theatrical production, because you really do have to work at it.
You do have to work at it in a kind of beautiful way. I think it's one of the reasons why we care so much about the aesthetic and the music. The music of this show is just absolutely stunning. The Once, of course, composed the music special for the show, and it's haunting and beautiful, just like you'd expect the Once music to be. And that's such an important part to us, to make it like not just comfortable, but so beautiful that you want to go on that journey. The work involved is really just the same kind of work you might do if you're reading a good novel. So you can imagine if you're reading a novel that you see all the things that are coming up. You're talking about Holly Hogan this morning and her adventures. Now, she was one of John Leon's students.
Right.
So Holly is that's reading her book. He had a huge influence on her. So his impact continues to resonate, but just thinking of Holly's book or Michael Crummey's book, any of these writers who make you imagine what things are, who people are, what what surrounds there are. So, it's funny. So often people have said to me, "Oh yeah," and when the whale is on stage, I'm like, "Yeah, but with the ropes and the chairs and that," and they're like, "No, when you bring out the whale." It's like you never actually see a whale, but it's so the actors Daryl Hopkins and Steve O'Connell are so extraordinary. You really kind of believe it, in a way that the whale is right there because they see it, you see it too. So there's something really exciting about that.
Yeah, I had Bertie Stapleton, and of course, in addition to the Once musical direction by Kelly Walsh, who obviously is a heavy hitter in the choral world and, of course, in theatre. Yeah. So it's coming up between March the 20th and the 24th at the LSPU Hall. Take it from me, having seen the play, it's absolutely a moving, stirring, and brilliant performance. You're going to want to check it out. So congratulations to you and the company once again, Gillian. It's great to have you on the show. Say hello to Don for me.
I will. Okay.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Bye. All right. There we go. That was great. Let's go. Line number 1. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi there. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. I'm calling with some concerns with the Go Bus. First, I want to give a shout-out to all their drivers. They go above and beyond to help their customers. That being said, I had major surgery in October for a knee amputation, so I cannot take the regular Metro bus. I can't take the taxi. I need this bus to take me to my appointments. So I had an appointment. Well, I had a booking. I put it in over a week ago, only to find out yesterday at 20 after 4 in the evening that ride was canceled to my doctor's surgeon's appointment for a checkup. So, I asked why. I said, don't somebody that has doctor's appointments take priority over somebody going shopping? You know what I mean? Why? It's hard to explain because I'm so frustrated with the Go Bus. I cannot seem to talk to a supervisor. I've tried 3 times now just to be told to call back within 24 to 48 hours. My doctor's surgeon's appointment is this afternoon. Do I have to cancel that appointment after being waiting 6 weeks to see my surgeon? Because I can't get a ride to St. Clair's in the Go Bus. I have no family. I have a daughter that lives in CBS, so she can't bring me to my appointment and is frustrated enough to be sitting there in a wheelchair and can't get out to my doctor's appointment. It doesn't make sense.
Is there any such thing as a priority system for Go Bus riders? Do they ask you, is this a trip to bingo, or is this a trip to the hospital, is this a trip to the mall? Do they do any sort of factoring that stuff in?
Yes. If you go on, they have a app. You go on, you can book your rides with Go Bus, right? And there's options there. It's either medical, personal, or work. Or school, right?
Okay.
But I was told this morning by one of the ladies that answered my call this morning looking for the manager, which I can't seem to get. She told me, she said, one time that was their policy, medical first. But now that's changed. She told me it doesn't matter now where you're going. And I said, okay, so who canceled my Go Bus for today, right? And she said, well, I guess it was the computer. So they're not putting blame on anyone, just the computer. It's not fair. Definitely not fair. I should take priority over somebody that's going to Walmart today or picking up their groceries today. You know what I mean?
You would think that medical concerns would be at the top of the list. I think there's no argument against that. I understand where you're coming from. So have you been rebooked? Are you able to not only rebook the ride, but rebook your appointment?
No. Well, my appointment, I'm not going to cancel it. I've waited 6 weeks for it.
Right.
So I'm going to have to pay $20 to leave my home, go to St. Clair's and back again in a taxi, which is hard for me to get into, transferring from my chair to a taxi. And far as I know, the Newfound or whatever, they only...
Hello? Well, somehow that call got dropped. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, you're back on the air. Go ahead. I don't know what happened there.
Yes. I'm just so frustrated, and I shouldn't be like this. And, I mean, I'm not a hard person to get along with, but don't leave my booking until 20 after 4 the evening before my appointment to let me know they canceled. And then when I called about it yesterday evening, I got the runaround. Oh, yeah, well, that's it. We've had like 80 people canceled today. I said, that's not the point. The point is people that got medical appointments should have priority over somebody that's going to Walmart or wherever they go, right?
Understood. Point taken. I appreciate the time. I'm sorry to hear your struggles. I wish you good luck and good health.
Mm-hmm. So there's nothing... I don't know if the manager of GoBus can reach out to people and let people know why they changed their policy and not let the customers know that the policy's changed.
We can see if we can get someone from GoBus to come on, because there was all kinds of concerns about the booking system, and then they changed it, and there was still some confusion with the new application that people are using. But we'll see if we can get someone on to talk about the priority list and some of the concerns you've brought forward this morning. How's that?
Yeah. Because I called Metrobus itself, the city Metrobus, because apparently they run GoBus and whatever. And I can't speak to anybody there. You got to wait 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, let's see if I can get a guest on for you. Happy to try.
Sure. Okay, Patty, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye. Break time. Edgar, we appreciate your patience, sir. You're next to talk about the fisheries protests outside of Church Rogers' office. Then we're sharing their harvest. And Pleeman Forsey, who's the PC member for exploits, he's there as well. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go. Line number 2. Edgar, you're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so we're at the Centerville this morning. It's been a big turnout there. The weather is good, and continuing on with the rallies from the week,
So share the message, because, I think there's a lot of confusion about what some of these things really mean, like free enterprise. When you hear that phrase, what does it mean to you, Edgar?
Well, we're here at Church Rogers' office this morning, like free enterprise. Yeah, so obviously there's no one there at the office, but maybe Church might know what it means. It seemed like the Premier and the Minister didn't know what it meant, and the trust agreement. So at federal level, this is where we're to. I mean, they issue those licenses every year. That's in trust agreements to those foreign and sometimes bigger companies, so they should know what those words mean, but that's where we're to this morning.
So when we talk about timelines, because one of the worries that's also been voiced, Edgar, is that if the changes aren't made and aren't made swiftly, then there might be some prolonged problems like tie-ups and stuff in the future. Do you foresee that being the case, or what kind of commitments do you need to hear before folks are, going to stop protesting at the patent building, stop going to Rogers' office or Haggie's office, and get out in boat?
Yeah, well, we're fisher people, so we're not educated to do the stuff at top level. So this is why we have our union and we protest, and so they can make the decisions. But time is going to run out. It's time is going. But if I can go fishing and not make any money, and the processor can process it and not make any money, why are we out there?
Good question. So what do you make of the fact that, up until now it's been fellas like yourself and Short and John Effort and people who have been leading the charge, but now the unions come out and said they support all the concepts that you guys are protesting about. What does that mean to the movement itself? And are you surprised that the union came out on side like the way they did?
No, well, the Minister and the Premier kept bringing up their names at the House all the time. We were over there, and all they were doing was banging on the tables and bringing up the FFAW, and they weren't there. So people say, well, we shouldn't get them involved, and some say, well, we need them, and I think that we need them because they got the numbers behind them, and of course we're paying them all to do that job, so we're paying them all that we can make money in our union dues. So I'm hoping that with the pressure and the numbers and educated people that you got to be on it, that we can get on the water. But like I told you, if we're not going to make any money and they're broke all the time, the processors, well, why are we out there?
Excellent question. Are not only out in front of Church Rogers' office today, are you also going to be outside of Haggie's on Monday?
Yeah, well, this one happened there. The people couldn't make it to St. John's, so they would phone on the week and saying, we get something on the go there, because, so we left it to some people and they got something on the go there. So it was a good turnout there. The weather is good, and there's people that, they don't like traveling bad weather, and some people can't afford to be out. And so on Monday at 8 o'clock, there's going to be someone else got that organised in there, and we'll be there. And we're trying to get people's support to support the harvester, and your union, and you support all the people that's not going to be able to do it in the fishery at today's prices. And it's not all about prices either, because we got nowhere to sell our kits half of the time, and I know that by cramming the season together is not making it any better. Putting all the species together, I know that, but we can't fish for nothing. It's the bottom line too, right? I
appreciate the time, Edgar. Good luck.
Okay, we'll call again on Monday, probably see if we can get another update. Someone will anyway, hopefully. It
sounds good. Look forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 6. Say good morning to the PC member for exploits. That's Pleeman Forsey. Pleeman, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Morning to you.
Good morning. Paddy, I do want to talk about the closing of the House of Assembly, certainly, and legislation. First of all, to learn the early closing of the House of Assembly, it certainly was surprising and disappointing, to say the least. As MHAs, we spend a lot of time talking to our constituents, and they have issues and concerns. And when we have a chance to bring those issues and concerns to the House of Assembly, into the People's House, and to debate some of those issues, to have it shut down, it's certainly disrespectful, to us and to the residents. So we certainly need to be in there debating issues. And we all know, Paddy, there's certainly a lot of issues that need to be debated, no doubt about that. And as far as legislation goes, if that's the issue, there's certainly a lot of legislation there. And one in particular, Paddy, that comes to my mind certainly is Crown Lands. I've been pushing for legislation for Crown Lands. I'll go back to the PMR, which was voted down by the Liberals last year. In the fall session, the minister was asked twice in the House of Assembly, about legislation, and all he said was, "Stay tuned." Yeah, and then late in the last fall session, the government House leader comes in, made a motion to bring in some legislation for this spring for Crown Lands, and we know it's on the progression of bills, but it's just sitting there, Paddy. With a couple of days left, if they needed legislation, they certainly could have brought in something on Crown Lands that we could have debated.
Of course they could have. And it's a funny thing you mentioned Crown Lands here this morning, because when I was giving folks an idea who's in the queue and who's waiting, I saw your name. I didn't even say House closure. I said Crown Lands, because I just sometimes associate your name with the private member's resolution regarding Crown Lands. Pleeman, do you have any idea? Well, and I mean, this is not just this edition of government, but successive governments have not been willing to entertain some amendments to the Crown Lands legislation. Any idea why? Because this is a political whip for their own tail, and yet very little movement made on the file.
Yeah, it is succession. I agree with you. But in 2015, there was a review. The PCs did a review in 2015 to have this addressed in the House of Assembly. And we've been this is 20. You're looking at 10 years later, Paddy, and it's still on the table. The Liberals been there for almost 10 years now. So we know there's legislation. We know there's problems. There's a problem. The people, residents of Newfoundland and Labrador know there's a problem. And we need to get some of this legislation into the House of Assembly, but all they keep doing, Paddy, is kicking this can down the road, and it's just, I don't know, Paddy, it just seems to be lingering, and they don't want to talk about it.
Well, it just continues to be out there, and it's still funny to me that we pick on a very couple of specific Crown Lands issues, and these people, for better or worse, have become the poster child for it. We'll always talk about the diamonds of Catalina, and we'll talk about Adam Furlong and his farm that's been complicated because of the Crown Lands issues. But it's worth reminding folks, you could indeed be next. There's a land use atlas on the government's website. You can check it out and see whether or not you might be living in an area that is actually Crown land. You think you own it. You've been paying taxes on it, and it's possibly not yours, and you'll only find out the hard way when you come to sell. Anything else you want to say this morning, Pleeman?
No, Paddy, I just wanted to weigh in on the situation of the House of Assembly. You know, we sit a less number of days anyway, and I mean, say to have those extra couple of days taken from us, that we can be in discussing some of those issues, you know, and debating, especially, you know, Crown lands, and there's a lot more issues to discuss, Paddy, and to be out of the House and not doing justice to the things that need to be debated is certainly disrespectful.
Yeah, the Information Act, I would suggest hopefully sooner than later we see the legislation required for psychiatric nurses to be part of the healthcare system. So there's lots right there, tip of tongue. Because, I mean, I know, well, we can talk about the big ones, healthcare, housing, cost of living and everything else, and healthcare. But some of the things that require legislation, now we know it's true. And I would also suggest the overhaul for the St. John's Act that's long overdue as well. Pleeman, I appreciate the time. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Paddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Pleeman Forsey, PC member for Exploits. Let's take a break. Do not go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to 4. Barry, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thanks for taking my call. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Yeah, I sent you an email yesterday about sharing the harvest. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I did.
Okay, so what, you did or didn't?
I did. So I respond as often as I can to the thousands of emails I get, but I did see yours, yes, Barry.
Yes, of course, Paddy. I know. I just want to point out about the sharing harvest in the guidebook, which is one of the emails I sent you. Sharing harvest, our group, our season is over at the first Saturday in January, and I'm okay with that. However, I just noticed, and my fault in not noticed before, but hunters. Individual big game hunters can make donations of their moose or caribou meat right up to the very day before the next season starts.
Fair enough. So where was the confusion prior?
It was my confusion, Paddy. I thought that because sharing harvest season ended at the first Saturday in January, that so did all donations of big game meat. But apparently now the donations can be made right up to the very day before the big game season next year.
Fair enough.
That's a game changer because now hunters can make donations right up to the day before, which will even prevent even more freeze-burn meat from going in the garbage.
Yeah, it's a good thing, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be exactly that way. So how has it gone this year? We know that, you know, when you start something new, people need to be informed about it and whether or not they're going to be interested in participating. So how's it gone so far?
It's gone pretty well. 2 years ago, we provided approximately 5,000 meals of big game meat alone. This past year, hasn't been a big lot of meat come in. We had 2 full moose. It sounds like a lot, but when you look at all the licenses that are available, it's not really a lot in the big scheme of things. And I will say, in all fairness too, Paddy, that the program is still relatively new, as you pointed out, and still even some food banks don't know about the program.
Yeah, and I mean, their clients would be thrilled to be able to come in and get some ground moose meat.
Paddy, to hear some of the stories I'm after hearing from senior citizens. One gentleman cried at the door when he seen a rabbit that I had donated for him, and all kinds of things. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no doubt it is. It's a great program. It was long overdue being implemented. I don't know why the heels were dragged as long as they were, but I'm glad it's in play now. Anything else this morning, Barry?
Thanks for saying that, Paddy. I appreciate it. And just one more thing about looking in the guidebook of one of the attachments I sent you. You'd think that that the government and the Canadian Food Sharing Association came up and implemented the idea all on their own.
What do you know? Shocker.
Yeah, what do you expect, Paddy?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
it's all good, Paddy, because in the long run, the program did get implemented and it's doing good things now.
That it is. Appreciate the time and the program, Barry.
As always, it's been a pleasure, Paddy.
Mine, sir. Take care. All right, there we go. Sharing the Harvest. Great program. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to the chair of the Kiwanis Music Festival's Planning Committee. That's David Oxford. David, you're on the air.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for taking my call. Thank you.
Happy to do it. What's on your mind this morning, David?
Well, actually, I guess I just wanted to be able to promote sort of thing, the festival that's going to be happening next week as of Sunday. Of course, we got a full week of activities or planned. And we've spent the last 6 months being able to plan this wonderful Central Newfoundland Kiwanis Music Festival. So I guess, like I said, it starts on Monday. Or Sunday, sorry, and it continues on until the Friday. We're going to have events throughout the week, sort of thing, about 350 participants, give or take, that are going to be able to perform throughout the week. And we've got 5 wonderful adjudicators that are able to adjudicate them and give them the guidance that they need to be able to make their performance as well as it can be. We've got Wednesday night on the 20th, I believe, if memory serves you correctly. The dates kind of come together, but we got Wednesday night where we're going to have a what we call a family and friends night, and those tickets are available at the door at the Gordon Pinson Centre for the Arts, and be able to give people the opportunity to have more relaxed environment sort of thing to be able to show their musical performances. And then, of course, the week ends out with the Rose Bowl competition on 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon at the theatre as well, and the tickets are available at the door. And then, of course, the wonderful thing at the end is the highlights concert, which we invite back performances that the adjudicators felt as though was the best sort of a deal throughout the week, and give them the opportunity to be able to perform again. And those tickets are available through the box office.
One thing to me that stands out as being very difficult is not only the organising and the planning, what have you, but being one of the adjudicators, because you want to be pointed and you want to be helpful with your review of the performance, but you're also talking about children sometimes. So, I mean, I wonder how they'd strike that balance in the conversations they have amongst themselves, because you can't, for instance, quote unquote, kid glove every performance and every performer, because no one gets better unless you're, given some idea about where you're coming up short and things you can work on. So how do those conversations sound? Because you don't want to be the adjudicator that sends someone home crying, nor do you want to be the one that sends them home with nothing.
Absolutely. So I guess the thing is, my experience in the 4 years that I've been involved with the festival, my experience has been that adjudicators normally start off by being able to give them that positive reinforcement, that positive comment sort of thing on what they did well. And then, of course, once they do that little bit sort of thing, then they're able to give the idea to the student, okay, when, for instance, if the child is doing solo speech, then the adjudicator can take it and say, well, okay, when you said this particular word, maybe if you could say it this way, do you see the difference? So it's kind of very a constructive criticism sort of deal, but it's done in a way that's as kid-friendly as possible. Because as you alluded to, Patty, I mean, the thing is, the children need to be able to understand that there are they did well, but in the same breath, let's focus on this. Because, I mean, if the children continue to go through the festival, which is what has happened for years, then therefore, I mean, they need to be able to have that idea of how they can improve in future years. So, yes, it's done in a more positive way, but still the adjudicators are able to give them an idea what they need to do to improve in years to come.
Yeah, because they are in essence teachers as much as judges. Give the folks the details one more time, David, for where and when they can see some of the performances.
Well, basically, like it all starts on Sunday at starting at the theatre, and then of course throughout the week it's at the various venues, which of course is the Salvation Army Church on Circular Road, the Windsor Pentecostal Church on King Street, the Memorial United Church on Church Road, the Anglican Church on Church Road, and then of course we have also performances at the Gordon Pinson Centre for the Arts throughout the week. And then Wednesday night is our actual Family and Friends night, which starts at 7 o'clock on the 20th, and then Friday is the Rose Bowl competition at 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon, the 22nd. And then that night, the highlights concert at 7 o'clock, which should be a wonderful performance sort of thing at the theatre as well.
Good to have you on the show. Good luck with the event, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome, David. Bye-bye. David Oxford, Chair of the Kiwanis Music Festival's Planning Committee. Let's go to line number 1. Greg, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty. How you doing?
Doing great. How about you?
Well, I'm doing all right, I'm supposed. I'd be good to be on this highway.
Yeah, we got a terrible connection. If you can maybe shuffle around a little bit, see if we can clean it up.
Well, I'm driving right now down the back. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Go ahead, see what we can do here.
Okay.
And that's David, we can't hear Greg. Is there? I'll put him on hold, Dave, and see if we can. If he goes a little further, we can clean that up a little bit. Because I simply can't hear him. That's unfortunate. I'll put him on hold. Can you speak with him, David, when you get a moment? Let's go to line number 3. Ryan, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. To you and your listeners. Thanks for taking the call, sir.
No problem.
Patty, I'm calling in about the fishery demonstrations that have been going on for days now. I spoke on Wednesday on the steps of Confederation Building, and I'm in full agreement that the inshore is desperate for change. There needs to be free enterprise, Patty. Those are the words of John Efford Jr., and truer words have never been spoken. I could not agree more. I encourage everyone to answer the VOCM question of the day. So, Patty, the Canadian economy is based on free enterprise. That free enterprise in the Canadian economy does not extend to the inshore fishery of Newfoundland and Labrador. We all know this. Instead of free enterprise or the market and healthy competition setting the price of fish to the inshore fleet, we have the Fishing Industry Collective Bargaining Act that lays out the final offer selection system of fish pricing. It's that legislation, Patty, that provincial government law that eliminates the free markets. From my perspective, outside buyers alone, which is what the Premier and Elvis Loveless and the Union all seem to think all of this comes down to, outside buyers alone will not give us free enterprise. It will help. But I see that, Patty, as a bit of a red herring. From where I stand, and where I stand, Patty, make no mistake, is with the inshore fleet. The provincial government, the federal government, and the FFAW must all act to reform the inshore fishery. All three have to work together to deliver free enterprise. So what I'd like to do, Patty, is give a breakdown of how it'll only take a minute, how each level of government and the union, what they can do to end this impasse, to end this crisis that we have with price leading into the 2024, the start of the 2024 fishery. So let's start with Ottawa. So I'm sorry. Let's start with the Fury government. Because the price of fish is set by the provincial government, by a provincial government fish pricing system that replaces the free market economy, that government system must guarantee inshore harvesters a fair market share of at least 50% for all species, not just snow crab. If government takes away the free market, Patty, and this is what it comes down to, and it has taken away the free market, the government system that replaces it must guarantee a fair market share to both sides. The buck stops with the provincial government. That must not be forgotten or deflected. In terms of the federal government, and you had a speaker on about this earlier, Patty, Ottawa has to create an independent financing agency or a loan board, not just to finance new entrants to buy licenses and quota, but to refinance existing license holders to become independent of illegal trust and supply agreements with fish processors, which are rampant, Patty. The cartel must be broken. And the last thing I'll say about Ottawa is that, and the protest this week, is that so many fishermen did not protest this week because they were afraid their processor would see them and stop buying from them. I heard that all week, Patty. That's the reality of life in Newfoundland and Labrador. The final thing I'll say, Patty, and this will be controversial. The union must immediately work to separate inshore harvesters into their own separate affiliate union. Now, harvesters must have their own leadership, their own representation, separate from plant workers, separate from offshore trawlermen, separate from aquaculture workers, and all other unionized sectors of the fishing industry. This is the last thing I'll say, Patty. A union that represents all sectors of a single industry, including competing sectors, cannot represent any one sector well, and that's exactly the situation that we have in the Newfoundland and Labrador fishery today.
It's been broken for such a long time that I don't know if I'm optimistic or not that some of these solutions will be implemented. But again, if it's about business calculations, then it's mandatory. If it's about political calculations, it's vital. Because as time continues, and every single year we talk about the exact same things and the problems that they present, it's amazing to me that we can't get this figured out a little clearer. And I'm not pretending that this is all very simple, but some of the fundamental changes can indeed be relatively straightforward. I appreciate the time, Ryan. I'm off to the news. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Patty. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. For everyone there, and hopefully, Greg, we have a better connection, talk about the pending privatization, possibly, of the two sections of Divided Highway, and then whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away.
Saturday morning, join us for the Irish Newfoundland Show. Send your request to irishnl@vocm.com or submit them online at vocm.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's see if we can rejoin Greg on one. Greg, you're on the air.
Okay, is that better?
Much better. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I got full bars on there now. No, I'm coming across last night on the ferry. I was looking at the TV, and they were saying about this maintenance, and I never really thought much of it till I got off that ferry in Port of Basket. And I'm telling you, man, that section of road is absolutely horrendous. I literally got the guts spit out of me just trying to get home. And I was just wondering, like, with that maintenance thing, are they looking after, like, upkeep of the roads, or is it just for certain sections of the road?
It's certain sections of the road. So we're talking about the 2 additional divided highway sections that are being proposed. So 40-kilometre section from Whitburn to just west of Bellevue, 15-kilometre stretch from Grand Falls, Windsor to Bishop's Falls. And yes, they're talking about everything. They're called, what is it, a DBFOM model: design, build, finance, operate, and maintain. So it's an all-in.
Yeah, so are they, like, I mean, I'm probably not going to make many good friends on this right now, but would it be, like I said, are they proposing maybe toll sections or something? Because, I mean, there's a few toll sections on there, and I mean, like I said, me, myself, personally, I wouldn't mind if I had a highway to drive on, and I'm sure a lot of the owner-operators with their heavy trucks and stuff, because I'm telling you, that highway is literally, you're taking your life in your hands when you drive that section of road.
Yeah, the question on tolls, no, is the short answer, because I asked Minister of Transportation John Abbott that question directly, and he says no, there is no consideration of tolls at this moment. And money's not the issue, though, right? Like when the gas tax was created to fund road work and bridge work and the like, so gas tax we bring in, just for a ballpark number, around $380 million. The most we've ever spent in a year on it is about $200 and something million. So it's not a money issue, it's just the road work season, how short it is, and the 12,000 kilometres of roads that need to be attended to. So at this moment, no plan to have tolls.
Yeah, because I'm still trying to figure out where this rails to roads and all this stuff went to. When that came out, that was deemed to be the big thing. And the only thing they did was divide the highway from St. John's to Whitburn. And that was, what, 20 years ago, Patty?
Yeah, thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, I mean, I could see owner or company.
Yeah, and now the concerns people are... Yeah, I can't really hear you, unfortunately, Greg. The concern that people are talking about here, but I mean, there's been that type of relationship with road work in Labrador for a long time, and it hasn't been a bad thing. It's just understanding how they will enforce so-called national standards for snow clearing and ice management. How we'll make sure there's some accountability, because it's one thing to be able to take the transportation minister to task, quite another to take a private company to task. We can say who they are and all that type of stuff, and maybe get guests representing that company on if things don't go as planned. But, you know, jobs, I don't think jobs will be compromised. Might not be unionized jobs, obviously, but there's going to be more road, consequently more road work, maybe more people working on the road. So that's the bare bones of it.
Because, like I said, I've spent the last couple of years working in Ontario, and they have a few toll roads up there that a privatized company comes in and looks at. They take care of the snow clearing. They take care of the maintenance on the road, like fixing. Driving across this highway right now, Patty, or driving down this Trans-Canada, it's like driving on a patchwork quilt.
Yeah, it's absolutely not great, and there's tolls in different parts of the country, and in Ontario notably is Route 407, which has been a complete debacle how they sold that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, there's pluses and minuses of everything, and I mean, you got to read the fine print, but me personally, if I had a decent highway to drive on, I wouldn't mind paying a toll in certain sections or whatever, like if they had it set up, because, I mean, even if we're on the tourist side of things, what a welcome to the province. That stretch of highway between Corner Brook and Port of Baskets, right?
Oh, absolutely, and same thing can be said for just outside Argentia.
Yep. Oh, I'm serious. You know, I do this a couple of times a year because, like I said, I've been working and being a tradesman or whatever. And the drive from Ontario to Newfoundland, it's a pleasure because it's divided highway the whole way. I actually will not drive. And I always take a night crossing because I will not drive on this highway in the nighttime.
Always a good idea. I appreciate the time this morning, Greg. Safe travels.
All the best to you, brother.
Same to you. Take care. All right, bye-bye. Let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 5. Good morning, Alex. You're on the air.
Good day, Patty.
Good day to you.
Patty, I know the people are talking about a lot of other things, but I'd like to turn my attention to mental health awareness / suicide.
Happy to talk about it.
It's a very emotional thing for me, and when something like this happens, it hits home pretty hard. Mental health awareness is the ongoing effort to reduce the stigma around mental illness and mental health conditions by sharing our personal experiences. Paddy, what I like to talk about is that we really need more help when it comes to mental health awareness / suicide prevention. If I can, Paddy, I like to be able to read something here when it comes to mental health and suicide.
Okay. Go ahead.
October 11, 2022, provincially, the combined number of suicides jumped 25%, from 65 in 2020 to 81 in 2021, ending a downward trend that started in 2018. And I'm a bit emotional when it comes to mental health and suicide prevention, because I lost 3 brothers, Paddy, through suicide. And when you hear us talk of it, you know, and someone have went through it this way and ended it all, so to speak, I guess that's all I can say. But it strikes home, because this last summer or early fall, I lost a brother through mental health illness, and it seemed like that there was no other way out than, unfortunately, through suicide. That's the only way I can say it. But we need more help, Paddy, when it comes to mental health and suicide prevention. We need our government. We need the Premier and his team of the province to really get around the table and talk about what can be done with mental health. Like, mental illness and suicide is in the brain, and you get sick. You get so sick, you get so depressed, and then when it comes, you the only thought, like, the brain is like any other organ in a body. When it shuts down, problems erupts, and sometimes the outcomes are not very good, you see. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that more people should talk about mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And I don't know, perhaps out there today, Paddy, I'd like to encourage men, women, boys or girls that might be going through mental illness right now. Perhaps the only way they are thinking is that there's only one way out, and that's to end my life. But there is help out there. Mental health awareness / suicide prevention helpline. There's clergy in your community. There's professionals in your community that you can reach out to for help. Counselors you can talk to. I'd like just to encourage anyone that's going through this today that, you know, get hold to me. I'll talk with you. My story is continuing, Paddy. I know what it's like to be depressed, and it's an awful sickness like any other sickness that we can encounter. I know what it's like to, you know, that I just want to end it all. But the way I see it is that right now I'm a survivor. I'm doing everything I can, and I've talked to a lot of people, Paddy, since I've been in Labrador West, and wonderful people who have been depressed, going through, mental health issues. But I just want them to keep their head up, get help, and I'm really thinking a lot on, in the coming weeks or months, that I'm going to talk to some professionals, some clergy, because I'd like to talk more about mental health awareness / suicide, Paddy.
And we welcome these conversations on this program. We do our best to keep it front of mind. And if you're in crisis, the establishment of 988 is also there for you. There's a variety of supports. I remember listening to Vince Withers one time. You know, we talk about the wait times and the shortages and the gaps in the system, but we also have to remind people that there is help. And if you need help, please do reach out and get it today, whether that be from friends, family, clergy, 988, or otherwise. please take that step, because we know people are struggling and we know people are suffering, and oftentimes struggling and suffering in silence. But Alex, I'm glad you put it on the radar again here today. These conversations are important, and we're more than happy to have them.
Paddy, I thank you very much for your time and for letting me talk a little bit there on that issue. And to anybody out there who's struggling today, I want them to get help, talk to somebody. Just somebody to sit down and just listen and not say a word. That means a lot. And what we need to get gone from mental health awareness, Paddy, is the stigma that's attached to it, I think.
100%. You're absolutely right. And it's long been one of the campaigns that people have engaged in, because the stigma is unfair. We don't stigmatize someone who's receiving dialysis. We don't stigmatize someone who's got a broken leg. So when we think of healthcare, we should think of it all in one breath, physical and mental. I appreciate your time, Alex. You're always welcome.
Thank you very much, Paddy. You have a great day and weekend.
The very same to you, sir. Thank you. All right,
bye.
There we go. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about cardiac wait times, fisheries protests, whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. And welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Bert, you're on the air.
Hey, Paddy. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I don't know if anybody's called in this week, but we had a death here on the West Coast in Corner Brook this past week of I won't say a good friend of mine, but I will say a new friend of mine. He died of a heart attack at a hockey game with his son up in Blanc-Sablon, Labrador. He was city manager here in Corner Brook. But the reason for my call is I became, I guess, an acquaintance of this gentleman because we met at a restaurant, and at the time I was awaiting heart surgery, and he overheard a conversation with me to another friend, and through that conversation he let me know that he was awaiting heart surgery as well. I had a valve replacement in May, and through that we became Facebook friends, and I kind of talked him through what to expect, and so anyway, I'm not calling today to basically come down on the healthcare system or anything. I hope my call today can maybe help save other lives, because this gentleman, through our friendship and talking on Facebook and so on, went to St. John's in December for an appointment, and he texted me and said my surgery date is January 12th. And these are texts from him, and I'm just saying I'm hoping these are truths, and it doesn't matter. So apparently he went back in January, and he was told at that time that he wasn't urgent. And, I went to his celebration of life the other night and met his wife, and I do believe he was scheduled for surgery in the next month or so. But that's not the point. The point is, when it comes to heart surgery, it's almost we're not proactive. I don't think we're proactive in terms of determining the level of I guess where the person is in terms of needing to have heart surgery. Obviously, if this gentleman had heart surgery in January, his kids would still have a father around. He's only 58 years old, and I'm the same age. And I wonder, I went through the process, and I know they do different tests to determine blockages, and I was born with a bicuspid valve. It had nothing to do with my heart, and I know this gentleman was waiting for a valve surgery as well. But we spend a lot of money. Right now we're sending people to Ottawa for surgeries. We're spending a lot of money on heart surgeons, and I'm hearing great things about the heart surgeons in St. John's. I mean, through my experience, I got to meet a lot of people here in Corner Brook, and we've kind of got a little group where we talk about it and stuff. But maybe the government should look at spending more money on testing for issues like blockages and stuff, because if we determine someone has a 70% blockage this year, why wait till that blockage gets to 90% and he ends up in a hospital in Corner Brook, Gander, anywhere, and he waits 3 months till he's deemed urgent, and then they fly him to St. John's for surgery? If we can determine, through echocardiograms, through angiograms, echocardio. You know, I had my surgery and I had a light put down and, you know, a camera put in through my arteries, and I was lucky I only had about a 30% blockage. But if we're going to do valve surgery, we need to know if there's any other blockages. And to go back to Alex's call, people don't realize it. When you're waiting for heart surgery, there is a mental health issue to that as well. And I know this gentleman was stressed out of his mind. And when he went to St. John's and was told he wasn't urgent, I'm sure this could have affected his, you know, the end result. So, you know, if we can spend more money on, you know, I don't know how many echo angiograms are done in a day in St. John's, but if we could double that or triple that, I think we'll save lives. I mean, if this gentleman had gone in and had his surgery on August 12th, maybe somebody else would have died simply because of the wait list. You know, it probably would have been somebody else calling in about a loved one that died. But hopefully, Patty, you can understand where I'm coming from. And, you know, maybe it's more to be, instead of being, let's be proactive instead of reactive. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, of course I do. And, you know, I would add to it, you know, when we were talking about what should be involved in the Cornerbrook Hospital, I'm really surprised there wasn't a cath lab going to be part of the plan too, because you can only get a dye test done here in the city. And there's people lying in hospital beds, and that's what they're waiting for, is a dye test. So your point is well taken. In addition to patients of some 50 have been sent to Ottawa, that relationship has been extended. Some 29 visits have been made by cardiac surgeons from the Heart Institute in Ottawa, and they've treated some 200 patients here. We now do have 5 surgeons, a full complement of cardiac surgeons on staff here now, which is good news. The wait list, though, is still where it was. You know, it's around 200.
It's crazy, Patty, and for me personally, you know, everybody, back when Danny went to Florida and had his surgery and stuff, you know, people came down on him. But if you're not an advocate for your own health, I really believe right now, if I hadn't been proactive myself, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today. I went to Calgary and had my surgery, simply because it was at the time when, a couple of years ago, when we had the health crisis with the doctors. We lost one of our best surgeons, went to the U.S., and he was my doctor, as a sense, to see for my surgery. But I got put onto a surgeon in Calgary, and the reason I went there was he specialized in repairing heart valves. And basically, when I went into the operating room that day, he said, "Now, Bert, we don't know." He said, we may be able to repair your valve. Basically, we won't know until we get in there. So I wasn't able to get a repair. And when I woke up, he said to me, he said, "You know, Bert, we're lucky we did it when we did, because your valve was far more deteriorated." And I had an aneurysm as well. So, I mean, you talk about mental health. To go through that knowing you had this issue, it's tough when you don't know the date coming up. And to live day to day, you know, basically with a time bomb inside of your body, it is stressful, right?
No doubt it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, obviously the stress would be very, very real, not only to the patient, but their entire family, their entire social circle of friends.
Guaranteed. And, you know, I've gotten calls this past week from friends of mine saying, you know, not that I didn't have faith in the healthcare system in Newfoundland, but the wait times scared the crap out of me. And I know there are wait times everywhere else. But all I want to say to people who are experiencing health issues like this, you know, you've got to be proactive for yourself, too. I mean, not that I'm more educated than anybody else, and not that my life is more important than anybody else's. It's just, you know, don't take what someone says to you at face value. And I know it's not much comfort to this lady I met the other night, and, you know, she got a call from the cardiologist in St. John's saying he was shocked. I'm sure he was shocked. And but you know, you need to ask these questions. You know, can my husband get can I get an echocardiogram? Can I get a test done to see if I have blockages? And, you know, I just feel so sorry. I'm kind of sick this week because I remember I messaged him back in January and I said, "Hey, buddy, you know, I'm thinking about you this week," and, you know, told him what to expect with the surgery. And I said, "If you have any pain, don't be scared to ask for some painkillers. It'll help you through the process." And when he got back to me and said that his surgery was postponed because he wasn't urgent, I just said, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
And when I heard that news last Saturday, Patty, man, I was sick, and I just came from my cottage and I said, I got to call in about this, and if it helps, when somebody gets together and they have, meetings and say, you know what, maybe we need to become more proactive and do more testing. And maybe instead of having to do open heart surgery, a good buddy of mine went in, they had blockages, and they put in stents. And I mean, that's probably a lot less expensive than full open heart surgery.
And it might be all that's required. Sure. I do have to get to the news, but I appreciate the point you made this morning. I'm sorry for your loss, and thanks for the call, Bert.
And I want to send out my condolences to the family and friends of this gentleman. He was a great guy from what I hear.
Hear, hear. Thanks for this.
Thanks, Patty.
You're
Bye-bye
welcome,
now.
Bert. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news. Don't go away.
Every Saturday is perfect for a night at the cabin. The Cabin Party with Brian O'Connell. Saturday night starting at 7 p.m. on VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Brenda, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Well, I'm still out here. I'm still the coordinator of Protect NL, and we've just launched a big campaign that we're calling the Big Push. And along with that, we've also launched a brand new website, www.protectnl.com. Now, the Big Push, it focuses on 3 messages: sustainability, transparency, and accountability. And yes, I'm talking about the wind energy deals that are currently being proposed for the province. We got a provincial petition where we're calling for wind legislation, and we also have a call to action to the people of our province to please sign this petition, and that start contacting our government by email, telephone, or even by visiting them, because we've got to start holding the government accountable in the decisions that they're making. We got a key date coming up now of March 20th, and it's approaching fast. Comments and questions and feedback on the wind energy being proposed by World Energy GH2, that's all due. And then almost 2 weeks later, we got government making decision on one of the biggest mega projects happening, and we don't want another Muskrat Falls. So we really want people to, please consider, or actually, time is getting really short now. March 20th is fast approaching. Please visit the website, protectnl.com. Facebook's been awesome for discussion, but we got to start taking action off of Facebook. We got all the emails and telephone numbers of our MHAs on there to start holding them accountable. And, Patty, we're really trusting our government to protect the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And it just doesn't seem like it's happening that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure what March 20th is, and it's not going to be like Muskrat Falls. I'm not going to hold the financial bag as a ratepayer. But, so what is March 20th?
March 20th is the deadline for comments, questions, and feedback
to
government on the project that's being proposed by World Energy GH2. And we really encourage people to go to the website, protectnl.com. We got a lot of research on there about wind energy, and we got a lot of questions that people are asking. And if you have some of these questions, we need to hold the government accountable, and we need to get those questions submitted before March 20th. All the emails are there of government. I mean, they're painting themselves as leaders in green energy transition, but we're not leaders. We're not. And we have to learn about what's happening in other parts of Canada and the world if we want to protect Newfoundland and Labrador and the people who live here. So we really want people to please go to the website, protectnl.com. We need to hold the government accountable for the decisions that they're making before it's too late. And yes, people still see this as one of the biggest boondoggles that could come, even worse than Muskrat Falls. So a lot of people still have that opinion, and we can still get ahead of it. We still have time, even though time is ticking. So March 20th, we got to start taking our comments off of Facebook and taking concrete action. Visiting them, emailing them, telephoning our MHAs and holding them accountable. When, I had to laugh earlier when I heard Pleeman Forsey call in. It's almost like the PCs were upset that the House of Assembly closure took place and saw it as disrespectful. But I tell you, when we've been in the House of Assembly, the PCs have not been using that time wisely either. And they also need to be held accountable. And why didn't Pleeman Forsey have any discussion about the wind energy deals happening in exploits? They have a huge pushback there of community. They're very upset with what Everett is proposing. So this lack of discussion about wind energy and what's happening in the province, enough is enough. It's going to be up to the people to take control, and it's going to be up to the people to start speaking out and emailing, telephoning, or visiting our elected politicians that we're trusting to protect us.
Fair enough. If you want to bring your questions or do as suggested by Brenda to be more active in speaking out, if you're so inclined, whether that be for email or visiting your member or or questioning the minister as responsible or the Premier, and people are welcome to voice their opinion here on this program. Dave wants me to put you on hold. I'm not sure why. I guess he has a question for you. Maybe the newsroom does. Brenda, I appreciate your time. Thanks for the call.
Well, that's great. And thanks again, Patty. And please, we encourage people to visit the website, protectnl.com, and it's time to take action. Tick-tock.
Thank you. Okay, Brenda, there you go. You're on hold. David will speak with you. Let's go to line number 2. Lewis, you're on the air. Hi, Lewis, you're on the air. Lewis on line number 2. Fisheries protests, you're on the air. He's on hold. Let's go to line number 5. It's David Brake, you're on the air.
Oh, Paddy, thanks for having me on.
No problem, sir. Go right ahead.
I read with interest, and I'm sure you've been talking about the attempt to get accommodation for 170 and quite possibly more international health workers. And it did say there was something that wasn't much explored, that it just spoke to a real lack of joined-up thinking, because it's not just accommodation that these people are going to need. They got to get to where they're working, and they got to get around. And I noticed in the specifications of what they were saying when they're looking for accommodations, they asked for close proximity to the health centre, obviously, but also within walking distance of a short distance via reliable public transportation to grocery stores, restaurants, and community amenities, which is it's kind of as clear as the nose in your face, but it's also important to point out only about a third or less, probably less, of the places that you could plunk down or rent out a unit would have any reliable public transportation to speak of that these workers could use, especially problematic outside of the Southeast Avalon region. And the problem there, of course, is that we can't take it for granted that international health workers, or any international person for that matter, is going to be able to just pick up, get a car, and be on their way. In fact, most of the countries that these people are coming from, they're not going to be able to walk in with a license at all. They'll have a license from their own country, but we won't recognize it. We'll need them to recertify. So imagine yourself in the place of somebody who has come to a completely new country, wants to make a new start, wants to help out and keep our population healthy and so on. But they're plunked down, and they have to, hope that they can find a taxi to get them. Maybe they can walk to work. Maybe they've got a place that's close to their to the place of work as a health worker. But if they want to get groceries, if they want to do anything aside from going from home to work, and they can't drive, these people are stuck. It's inconvenient for them, and it frankly makes it really hard for me to understand how they would be enticed to stay, because many of them come from places where they would expect to be able to get around without having to drive. Many of them will never have driven. I don't understand. I hope that somebody in NL Health Services is talking to someone at the province about the need to set up a regional transit system of some kind, at least in some of the major centres outside of the Corner Brook and St. John's, because there are a million reasons, but clearly somebody inside NL Health Services has spotted that attracting and retaining international health workers, you need something like that.
Yeah, I mean, every facet of life has to be considered when we talk about newcomers, whether they be healthcare professionals or otherwise. David, anything else before I take my final break of the week?
No, I hope that someone out there is listening. There are 100 reasons why we need to have some way for people to get around that's not rideshare and it's not their car. This is just one of them. But it's clear that somebody in Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services noticed this. They just need to get the rest of the province to, the rest of the government to take action and start moving forward on this. Otherwise, that's a part of the health crisis too. Transit and health crisis actually go to part of the same problem.
I appreciate the time, David. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Bye-bye. All right, final break of the day and the week. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Ruby, you're on the air.
Oh, hi. Hi, Patty. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How about you?
Oh, good. Yes, I have so much on my mind, I don't know where to start, but I have to start with what I heard from the House of Assembly when the fishermen, or it makes no difference who's in there having a protest, to come out and automatically not answer these questions and that shut down the House of Assembly for a couple of days. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's taking away our freedom of speech. And it's not only taken away, but it's discrimination.
How is it taken away anybody's freedom of speech? I'm sorry?
Well, when someone says to me, well, if I'm out there protesting in Confederation Building or wherever, and the person that's in charge, because let's face it, Premier Fury it's Premier. He's Premier of our province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Our people elected him. And he's automatically saying, no, we're shutting down for a couple of days. Now, he's shutting down the House of Assembly for a couple of days, but he's not, not to answer questions. Now, that's why I'd like to know why I'm 80 years old, and I don't ever remember hearing anything like this before. So this, to me, I found that very, very, very hard to take yesterday.
Fair enough. I don't think people...
So do you think that was okay?
No, I've talked about...
I'm talking about it could be any party. It could be any party there. It could be NDP, PC, any party. But for anyone to do that, I don't think that's... it's so much happening in Newfoundland and Labrador today. If we haven't got a House of Assembly that the people of Newfoundland and Labrador... That's our house. We should be able to go in at certain days and ask questions and get some answers. But I find we're not getting no answers to any of the questions, no matter what minister we ask. So this is why I'm saying now we're shutting down the House. We don't have the House of Assembly open very often. Not many times, and now automatically we're shutting her down again for a couple of days. So that's why I'm interested in finding out about these things.
I think we all deserve answers to very important and pointed questions. And look, this has happened many times in the past where the House has been closed when it should have remained open, and it's never a good...
The House is closed. The House is closed too much for all that's happening here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't use a computer. So my only means would be the telephone. And so what I'm saying is if we haven't got a place like anyone that don't use computers, because everything now is email, and a place to go and ask questions or a phone to ask questions, and people are coming out not opening the House or not only opening the House of Assembly, but not even answering questions. We want someone there to represent the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, and we want answers. And if you can't give us answers, then we have to find other means of getting them answers.
Well, we can always try to get answers.
We should be allowed in the House of Assembly.
Fair enough, Ruby. Understand your point, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, Patty. Thank you very much. And I'll talk to you again.
I look forward to it. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling. See if we get a couple in here. Line 1. Doran, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, how are you today?
Okay, how about you?
Good. I just want to go over a couple of things with reference to the environmental impact statement, the amendment. I've been going through it, and I've gotten pretty well all the way through it, and there's a lot of things on there that are setting off a lot of alarms. For example, in it they talk about the bats, which are down from 94 to 99% due to the white nose syndrome, and they're expected to recover under normal conditions. Now, that being said, when you look at that, what effect is the project going to have on the recovery of the bat population? And when that's brought up in the update, the only answer is given is that the company will develop plans with various government organizations to address this down the road. And also within that, they identified that the Cadre Valley and the Port-au-Port areas are acknowledged as being the primary stopover areas for the Atlantic flyway for migratory birds. And again, there is nothing concrete put forth as to what the company plans on doing to mitigate or minimize the effects that this project will have on migratory birds, other than to state, like they state multiple times throughout the document, that essentially it is something they're going to plan and develop with government organizations. When you get onto things such as they talk about shadow flicker and the effect on human health that it has, they state that their target is 30 hours per year, and it's based on an expected or realistic scenario incorporating cloud cover and operational statistics. Now, the funny thing is that when they put this in here, they state that there is no supporting documentation, yet this line is taken directly from the American Clean Power Association, which put out this article back in 2020, talking about the average yearly exposure to shadow flicker. The interesting thing is that there is no indication on how they're going to limit shadow flicker, because when you consider the studies between 1981 to 2010 for Newfoundland, shows that Newfoundland has a total of 1,527 hours of sunshine, or 270 days per year of sunshine, clear sunshine. So there's no mention on how shadow flicker is going to be minimized or what actions are going to be taken to remedy that. And when you look at the statistics in itself, the way they word it is as if it's something they had come up with based on their research, which it isn't, because New Brunswick also uses the 30 hours per year maximum, and so does Israel and other locations.
You're breaking up, Duran. I can't hear you.
Oh, all right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, not too bad.
Okay. When it comes to the aspect of backstepping, you have like Ontario and other provinces that are pushing to have a minimum of 2 kilometer backstepping based on the size of these turbines. And, right now we're looking at a 1 kilometer spacing for the Port-au-Port area, which, is and what others would consider cruel and unusual punishment when it comes to it. When you also look further into the amendment, there's concerns with the possible introduction of invasive species to the peninsula as a result of all the construction.
Wait, now, how would that work? An introduction of invasive species because of construction? Like, what does that mean? What kind of species are we talking about?
Well, that would be because of vehicles that would be coming from different areas. Any ones that are brought in that aren't properly cleaned can have, probably seeds on them. It's just like when you look at.
But isn't that concern a little bit much?
Well, this is brought up by the actual government agencies that are going over the EIS amendment. This is concerns they're bringing in, right? Because when you look at Port-au-Port in itself, it's a fairly isolated area. And if you look back at even for Newfoundland in itself, when we had that potato fungus and whatever, you're not allowed to bring things across over to Nova Scotia and stuff like that, any plants or whatnot, due to the possibility of bringing that potato disease or whatever over there, or among other things. And so when you look at projects of this magnitude and the equipment's going to be brought in, the different areas are going to be brought in, trucking from different areas where they're going to be hauling gravel or soil or whatnot from different locales, bringing it in, that could be a direct threat to the sensitive species of plants that we have here that are found nowhere else in the world. And so the company's plans on that to mitigate that is to use herbicides, right?
Fair enough. And I wish we had more time, because I do appreciate and enjoy these conversations about some of the risks associated. But we're up at 11:59 and 50 seconds, so we'll have to leave it there. But you're welcome back next week if you're so inclined.
Oh, I've got a lot more to cover. No problem.
No doubt.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the time. Okay. Bye-bye. All right, we are indeed out of time, but we will pick up this conversation again on Monday morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Openline. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy weekend. Talk Monday. Bye-bye.